We are up. I just need to click around on a few things. We will be good to go. If I can get it clicked around on, there it goes. Well, I thought we were up. I see it, but it's frozen. Let me. Maybe I've just got a slow connection. It'll catch back up in a second. I mean, luckily it's frozen and neither of us are making too goofy of a face. There it goes. All right. Hey, Parents Helping Parents Lifetime. Now I can get my radio voice going and we can get after this thing. Hey, it's Monday. It's January 3rd. It's the first live stream of the year. If you're here in Oklahoma, it's finally not 10 degrees outside like it was over the weekend. So thanks for joining us. You could choose to be doing lots of different things this evening, but instead you're here with us and we're kind of honored, if I'm honest. So a few things before we get started, before I introduce our speaker tonight. If you're new to Parents Helping Parents, we're a Oklahoma-based nonprofit organization with the mission of offering resources, shared experience, and education to parents who have a child any age who might be struggling with substance use disorder. So to make a long story really short, a group of parents a number of years ago got together and said, hey, we had a lot of questions and we couldn't really find the resources that we need when our child was struggling with substance use disorder. So let's start a support group for parents so that we can pass along what we learned on our journey. And that support group turned into 5 support groups and turned into a whole organization that now hosts support groups all over the state of Oklahoma and here online. So thank you for joining us. If you want more information about Parents Helping Parents, if you want to know where we host support group meetings that might be live and in person, if you want to keep track of all the events that we've got going on and all the wonderful things that we're up to, you can do that in 2 places. One is at our website, www.parentshelpingparents.info. The other thing you should do if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching this on somebody else's feed is follow us on Facebook at Parents Helping Parents Inc. That's the best place to keep in touch with everything that we've got going on. So I want to remind everybody a couple of things. One is the best way that you can help us get the word out, reach more people who might be in need, is to reach up and click the share button if you're watching this on Facebook. So I guarantee you that somebody on your friends list either knows somebody or has somebody in their family who's probably struggling with a substance use disorder right now. And you sharing this on the feed could quite literally save a life. It could connect somebody to support and resources that could make a big difference for change for them. So don't be afraid to like and share the content, right? The other thing I want to remind everybody of is, as an organization, Parents Helping Parents' mission is limited to sharing our experience, offering support, and providing some education. So nothing that Parents Helping Parents does should ever be considered a substitute for professional counseling, medical advice, legal advice. All of those things are wonderful. We think you should get those if they're appropriate for your needs. We just don't do those services ourselves. We like to connect you with people in your area that are doing. So we do at times get to bring in experts to speak at our meetings like tonight. So we can offer some expertise in those areas, but just not as an official function of the organization, right? So, hey, one last time before we get going, click the share button, share it to the content. It's a great way to get the message out. And then I'm going to pass it along to Melissa, our wonderful guest tonight. So Melissa is a relatively new acquaintance and friend of mine, but a wonderful counselor down in the Lubbock area. I'll let her tell more about who she does that work for and what she does as she kind of shares with us tonight and tells a little bit of her story. So if you've got questions, there's 2 ways to ask those. You can ask them on the live stream on Facebook. I will be monitoring that as we go along. Remember, that's on the internet. It's there forever. feel free to use it, but just don't be upset that when you ask a private question that everybody can see it, right? Because that's how the internet works. If you're concerned about your anonymity and you want to ask a private question, in the title of this video, there is a text line that I will also be monitoring. You can send that. That only goes to me. So if you want to ask questions privately, you can do it that way as well. So, hey, Melissa, the floor is yours. I'm going to turn my ugly mug off and let you get after it, okay?
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Costa, and thank y'all for having me tonight, allowing me to tell part of my story, but also allowing me to tell you how come family therapy is so important to me and how come I went from individual to more of a systemic approach with my clients and their families during their time in treatment with us. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay, hold on one second. Give me just 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay. So like I said, my name is Melissa, and I told you I was going to share part of my story. And each one of these pictures have very relevant people in my life, especially a family who's very supportive of my recovery and have helped me along this far. So I celebrated 10 years ago, 10 years on December 28th, 2011. And that is truly a miracle. And it's a gift that I cherish every single day. Every night before I go to bed, it's like, thank you for another day. So to the left, these are my parents, Frank and Margie, and this is my sister, Megan. So during my addiction, a lot of how can I say it, conflict between me and my sister happened surrounding my addiction. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was make a living amends with my sister. So this is when I got my bachelor's of science. I took 17 hours in summer of 2018 so I could graduate with her, do something with her that I've never done with her before. This next one right here is my master's program. I graduated with a master's degree in couple and marriage and family therapy at Texas Tech University. This is my son, who's very proud of his mom, who he watched like through the grips of addiction. Like he was there every day and didn't know what to do. You know, he was the child, I was the parent, and the roles were reversed. We have a very great relationship at the present time. And then this one right here at the bottom, this is me and my husband, Danny. We just got married October the 1st. He's very supportive of my recovery. Yeah, so I have a wonderful support system. And I talk about the support system because if change didn't happen, not with just me, but within the family, there's a chance that things are going to revert to old behaviors, and not necessarily like going back to me using drugs, but the behaviors. So that's how come I decided to get a degree in couple marriage family therapy. I was working at a treatment center in 2013, and I used to think that addiction was individual based, right? Like the only person that needed to change and do something different with their life is the addict itself, not the family. So when I was working at this treatment center, I noticed that every time family members would bring their loved ones to treatment, you could see the fear in the family's face, just like you could see it in the person who was coming to treatment. I guarantee you, if families and the loved one were to write emotions down and feelings down, they're going to match. There's the anger, there's the fear, there's the sadness, the grieving. They're going to match, and I've seen that a lot since working in treatment since 2013. So that's a little bit of my background. I'm also a lead clinician at stages of recovery. So I get to do things like this. And it's such an honor because I do believe that we all can recover, the addict themselves and the family members. But what are we offering the family members, right? Because if we think about it, the people who go to treatment, they're getting individual therapy, they're getting group therapy, they're getting 12-step meetings, they're getting sponsorship, they're getting all these resources. But what are we doing for the family members? How are we making it a cohesive approach, right? How are we collaborating together? And I think that's so important. If we want to see some type of success, right, is that we've got to do this together and not see it as just the addict themselves. One thing that I do part-time is I do therapy, family therapy with adolescents who are in the juvenile justice system. And I guarantee you, every time that I go and I do an assessment, there is substance use disorder. And if we look at the family members of these adolescents that are on probation, their family members have also struggled with addiction. So this is why this is so important to me. So the importance of family engagement. 1 is to solve relational conflict. 2, solve communication conflict. 3, improve family bonds. And 4, develop family resources. And I love that word that Derek said, right? We're here to help give resources, right? And I mean, with family engagement, there's a develop a family of resources. So kind of going off of what Derek was saying. We wanted to talk about the stages of change and how we can help the addict or our loved one who's in treatment go through these stages of change. We have the pre-contemplation stage where there is no intentions of taking action. That means they are just, nope, I'm not about it. I'll see you later. Then you have the contemplation stage. There are intentions to change and the plan to do so, but they just haven't acted on that plan. But they do have a plan in action. And then there's the preparation stage where there's some intention to take action and some steps that have been taken to for that preparation. And of course, the action stage, behavior has changed, but for a short period of time. And I believe, Derek, you wanted to talk about the early stages, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, just maybe some tips on like what families can do to support people who might still be in those early stages.
So in my experience with the stages of change, it can go back and forth, right? Like we can be in the preparation stage and then go all the way back to the pre-contemplation stage, right? Or we could go in the action stage and then go all the way back down to the preparation stage. And I see this all the time at work where I'm like, oh, well, this client was just in the action stage. And then this week, he's going to be in the preparation stage, right? But what can we do as a family, as a unit to help during these stages? And, you know, I thought about this question all day today, like, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And the thing is be patient, be understanding. Don't think just because they hit the action stage that they're going to be there at that stage the whole entire time, but just knowing that they can go back to each stage, no matter how much clean, in my opinion, clean time that they have, right? It can bounce back, bounce back, bounce back. I think for family members, it's also finding their support, right? This is what we're here for, to find, community or family resources. And so the best thing is just supporting one another, like taking those resources and supporting, and like Derek said, sharing those experiences with other families will promote that change. Derek, do you have any feedback for that?
No, you're doing great.
Okay, so what I wanted to do different was I wanted to research caregivers with loved ones who struggle with a substance use disorder, right? And so the caregivers were mostly mothers, and they were of their loved one was from 18 to 30. And we found out, like, what were some of the things that families said that they were missing while their loved one was in treatment. And one of the biggest ones that we found, and that we found through our research, is not having that support, not ever getting that phone call. Yeah, there was some family therapy, but that was it. Or there was a family weekend, and that was it. So what were you wanting more of? What do you need more of? And a lot of the mothers reported just having that support. Like, is there anything that y'all have for families that will help us, with our own recovery? We wrote a paper about it, and we developed a program. I'm going to share that with y'all. And it is called the Prison Workshop. And what this is, it's just for family members. It's an 8-week curriculum that we do on Saturdays. And it's just for family members. The loved one does not come. We wanted to give something back to the family members, and not just make it all about the addict themselves. So this prison workshop is promoting resilience and self-management. And I'm going to share with you, give me one second. Let me. Derek, do I got to stop sharing this one to share the next one? Sorry. Okay. So what this workshop consists of, like I said, it's an 8-week program. I just kind of want to go through the weeks with y'all so y'all know exactly what this curriculum contains. So the first week, we do introduction to stress management and mindfulness. So we work on distress tolerance, improving the moment, and soothing the 5 senses. And then we go to week 2, which is develop a wise mind, observing emotion and protection against that negativity that sometimes our loved ones can bring to us. So we added in a new one. It's called Family Patterns and Interactions. And so that's observing family interactions and being able to describe the family patterns. That's going to be so important. As a family therapist, I believe that everything affects everything that affects everything that affects everything that affects everything. We go to week 4, revisit self-care, and we learn calming statements and one-mindedness. Week 5, we do distress tolerance and accepting reality. That's a big one, accepting reality. Just like the loved one, right? Being accepting of this treatment, or, where their life is at. That's what we try to do to the families too. Week 6, we have self-care in action, which is observing emotional and social context, and then revisit protection against negativity, and then an invitation to curiosity, all about interactions. Developing that curiosity. I look at that one as being able to ask questions, right? Without without that fear, right? Just being able to ask a simple question. And then the last one, revisit observing emotions and distress tolerance. It's a really cool workshop. We have one going right now at Stages. It's been good, and so that's something that we wanted to give back to families, was to create this curriculum, and we were able to do so through our research. And this is what it looks like for us. Eric, do we have any questions or anything so far?
Yeah, we did have a quick question, Melissa, and I'm gonna try to remember it because it was asked and then I think removed, but I remember the gist of it, and I think it's a really good question. The gist of the question is, and I want to empathize, I think, because I hear this from a lot of parents, just the frustration of nothing I'm doing seems to be working or helping. But the question essentially is, what should parents do when they're really trying to get their young person help, but their young person's just not interested in change and not interested in help?
And that's a tough one. I think that we see that with the adolescent and with adults, right? And I think that's important. If the adolescent or the loved one does not want to change, right? Like, they're just absolutely not going to do it. We're not going to do it. It doesn't mean that the family members can't get help themselves to be able to maneuver through that with, them not wanting to go to treatment or them not wanting to change at all. I think it's important that families know that they can still get help to maneuver through whatever they're going through with their loved one.
Is that this whole idea of the family disease in action? Is that if this is really a family disease, one person in the family can choose to get help and the other people in the family choose not to get help, and that's okay for that person because they're changing, they're getting healthier despite what everything else is going on.
Exactly. But wouldn't it be great if we could see like the whole family as a whole actually get healthier? I think there's too much at times. Well, you have to do this, or you're the one that needs to change. You're the one that's, using the substances. We're not doing that. But yet there is some behavior there. There's that enabling, that fear, like, I don't know what to do, that anxiety. But yeah, exactly what you said, them being able to still get help and the family not have change. But how successful is it going to be?
Yeah, and that's what I really heard as you were kind of walking through the different weeks of the PRISM program. It sounds like I said prison, not prison, PRISM. One of the things that I was hearing in each of those weeks is, you as a parent don't have to feel trapped by somebody else's substance use disorder. You can move towards your own health and wellness by learning distress tolerance and learning these skill sets. And sometimes that's all you can do.
Sometimes that's all you can do. That's all you can do. I remember my mom finally saying, like, I'm done fighting. If you're not willing to fight for something better, then I'm done fighting with you. And so she went like that, and I stayed out for a few more months and went to treatment again and did it. But my mom, like, I was just like dumbfounded when she said, I'm done. Like, if you want to stay sick, you can stay sick, but I want to do something different. Because she also had my dad and she had my sister that still needed her, but she was so invested in making sure that I didn't overdose, making sure she didn't get that phone call, hey, Melissa didn't wake up. Like, that's what her life was consumed with. And I can't imagine what that was like for my mom, like those countless nights of just wondering, am I going to get that phone call? And it's crazy because the article that we wrote off the research, it says every time the phone rings, my heart stops, is how we titled our article.
When your mom said that to you, like, hey, I can't do this anymore, I'm done, how did that translate behaviorally? Does that make sense? Like, what did she mean by that? Like, how did things look different after that?
So she quit answering my phone calls. She quit giving me money. Even though I was married, I was still financially dependent on my parents because I had an addiction that I needed to support, right? So it was no longer picking up that phone, no longer giving me money, no longer enabling me, no longer making excuses for me, which that was really big for her. That was really big for her. And I kind of fell through the back and continued to do what I was doing. And she moved forward and was there for my sister and for my dad. You know, this addiction didn't just take years off my life, like it took years away from my father and from my sister as well, and from all my loved ones. So
Yeah.
I didn't think she was going to do it, but yeah, she did it.
Yeah. Did that, oh, hold on. We've got another question.
Okay.
Coming in hot.
Coming in hot.
I'm gonna pre-read it, and then that way I don't want to botch it. Okay, so it says that a lot of times parents might try to quote unquote rescue loved ones from different consequences of their use. So the questions, multiple kind of questions wrapped up in this, is how do parents help loved ones receive natural consequences of their use, and what type of consequences um, is that sometimes, and how does that kind of help incentivize movement through that stages of change?
Okay. That's a big question.
That's a lot. You can thank Medley for that.
Is it really Medley?
Yeah.
Medley. Could you repeat that again, Derek, please?
Yeah. So he says that oftentimes parents rescue their loved ones from consequences of their use. So the first part of the question is, how do parents help loved ones receive consequences? And then the second question was, what are some of those consequences? And then the third question was, how do those consequences sometimes incentivize change or incentivize movement through that stages of change?
I mean, I think that's a good question, Medley. So the consequences. So I see that I see that a lot in family members are sometimes they're afraid to even give consequences out to their loved one because they're afraid of losing their loved one. So they continue doing what they're doing with their loved one, whether it be enabling, that whole entire list that we went through, and never do anything. They never do anything. And so I think it's really important that as people who work in treatment is that we help family members figure out what are those consequences? Like, what are we asking you to stop doing for your loved one in order to get them and maybe invested in treatment, or maybe move them a little bit through the stages of change. And that can be anything, like I said, no more money, no cell phone, like just taking it, just taking it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Is that a necessary thing? Is experiencing those consequences something that most people find necessary in order to really engage change?
I don't think it. I mean, I believe that, of course, there has to be some kind of something that brought them to treatment, right? Something, had them reach out, right? And so I lost my train of thought, Derek.
Yeah, that's okay. That happens to me like every day.
But it doesn't have to be like the materialistic, consequences. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying like
Right.
allowing, too often what I see in treatment are those helicopter parents, right? That they send their loved ones to treatment, but they want to be right there in the midst of treatment for every single thing, right? But I
Mm,
think there's like a point in time where we need the treatment or the therapist, they need that time with that client, um, with hoping to promote that change, right?
yeah.
So it doesn't just have to be, it's like just let us do what we can do for your loved one, and go from there.
Yeah.
So I think that comes with like trust, like trusting, right? A lot of them have been through multiple treatment facilities, multiple things. And so they're kind of like at their wits end, like, what else? This is not going to work, right? But just allowing us that time with their loved one to, to hopefully promote change.
Yeah. Is there a really hard reality to addiction treatment? And sometimes I even struggle, like as a therapist working with clients with this question. So like this is like I'm actually kind of asking this as well. But um there are times where I think, there's only so much we as treatment professionals and family
Mhm.
members can actually do outside of somebody making different choices and wanting some
Mhm.
change for themselves.
Right.
Is there how much truth is there to that statement?
There's a lot of truth to it. There's a lot of truth to it. What are your thoughts there? Do you think there's
I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I think that
Mhm.
that's one of the really hard pills to swallow when we
Mhm.
start talking about addiction and change is that, man, I can want clients to change and really be invested, and families can want them to change and really be invested. But at some point, individuals have to want at least some change. And I think that that's where a lot of our parents really come up against that wall is they're like, we want this so bad, they don't want it at all, and we're trying to pull them along with all of our might.
And I think that's what makes us all human, is that we want people to get better, right? We want people to get treatment. We want people to succeed. We want them to have, fully functional lives, lost dreams reawaken. We want them to reach all those milestones, right? And it is difficult. And there's times even as a therapist where I'm like, am I fighting harder than you are for you to stay in treatment? That goes through our minds too. So definitely, even as a therapist, it's like we want this so bad for them, but at the end of the day, they have to want to change.
Yeah.
We can want that for them, but they actually have to put it into action.
Yeah. What was it, if I can ask you a personal question, Melissa, what
Mhm.
was it for you in your journey that finally set in motion you really wanting recovery?
So when I went to treatment in Amarillo in 2012, I didn't complete the treatment program because I had already been sober for almost 2 years. So I knew what to do. And I came back to Lubbock, and I went to my home group, and someone said, if you don't do something different, you're going to die. Right. And that word die was so profound. I don't think I had heard that in treatment while I was in treatment, but it was another member who said, if you don't do something different, you're going to die. And from that day on, it was like, I don't want to die from this. And I don't want my
Yeah.
parents and my kids to have to bury
Yeah.
me. So that was a profound change for me, was that word.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, was death. Yes.
Yeah. Wow, man. Thanks for sharing that. Um, so I always ask uh, all of my guests similar questions.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm making sure that I'm not missing anything in our live stream here. And my dog and cat are fighting with one another.
My 3 dogs are making a lot of noise.
it's that time of the night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are people that are just chiming in, kind of agreeing with some of the things that we're talking about, and sharing some sentiment that, you know, and so I'll say this, and then I'll ask Melissa the question that I always ask is, I think that that's one of the values of the support groups that Parents Helping Parents offers is we forget, and parents I think oftentimes forget, like, you're not the only one going through this. I actually just said this to a client of mine today is our problems always tend to lie to us and try to convince us that we're the only ones dealing with whatever it is, fill in the blank. And that pushes us more into silence and solitude. And so we don't reach out and we don't ask for help. And that's one of the values of support groups in general, whether it's AA or NA or Al-Anon or a parent support group, is that it puts you in a room and it puts you in touch with people who are going through similar things, so that, you know, man, I'm not the only parent that's having to deal with this. Or, man, I'm not the only one that's dealing with depression, or I'm not the only one that's dealing with suicidal thoughts or with addiction. There's other people that are going through this. And the more that we talk about it, the easier it's going to be to step out of that own shame and encounter some change. Right. So I always like to ask people, if you had like 2 minutes just to give one message, like one solid sentence message of hope to somebody or to a family that might be struggling, watching the video, like, what would your real simple, like, hey, here's my 60-second message to anybody that's out there that's struggling right now?
Ooh, that's a good one, Derek. Oh, let me think. Um, I think it would be, don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Don't lose faith, that change won't occur, because it can occur. And it's kind of like we said, like, even though the individual might not want to change, the family can still start healing, and getting better themselves. And I think that'll also help them, like, if their loved one does come and say, I want to get help, they've already got that foundation of calling their support system. Well, my son called or my daughter called, and now they're ready to get help. Just being able to be there for one another. But don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Hope is so vital in this journey. I believe the three things that we can give one another is hope, unconditional love, and faith, right? And so we can promote those. That's what it would be.
Man, thank you so much, Melissa. Thanks for just your time and for being here. And I know you've been under the weather and stuff, and I appreciate you still hanging in and hanging out with us for a little bit tonight. So, hey, thanks everybody that's been watching and joining us. Remember, we do this live stream the first and third Monday of every month, and we've actually got what I think is a pretty solid lineup of guests coming in through January and February, that we've already got things going. So thank you. We've had a lot of people participate and comment in the thread tonight, supporting one another. I love to see that. Man, you guys could be doing anything on a Monday night and you're choosing to do it with us. And I appreciate that. So thanks for joining us, Melissa. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for everything you do for the recovery community. I know that it is much appreciated and much loved.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Hey, everybody have a great night. Thank you so much.